December the 10th, 2019. Guys, you're looking at an article from KATU News, and it's actually coming from Oregon State University. It's on December 4th, so about 6 days ago, but it says OSU research shows major Cascadia subduction zone quake could trigger quake in California. And that's because, guys, that you're talking about the fault zone actually comes into the northern section of the San Andreas Fault, and basically they're one fault. Now, of course, in the Cascadia subduction zone, you got a couple of different plates involved in there, but you can see in this area near the bottom, you got the Mendocino fracture zone here. That's part of the Cascadia fault zone that's right there, and you've got this section, this area that's being pushed under Oregon and Washington and up into Vancouver. But for the last few days, I've noticed more and more reports coming out of this area from the USGS and other TV stations about concerns over the Cascadia subduction zone, and that it's been locked up, but they're starting to notice more and more quakes, especially along the area where you've got the Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, and those areas that are basically the crest of where this subduction zone, called the Cascadia, moves under the North American plate. The North American plate is moving to the left in this image, or west. That's why if you look onto the Atlantic seaboard and you look on the maps, you'll see that that Atlantic ridge is separating because it's moving west. And so as it moves west, the Cascadia subduction zone is moving under it, and that's creating heat in the magma fields. That's why St. Helens went off. But now we're in grand solar minimum, and we're seeing things we've never seen before in our lifetime. And that transfers a tremendous amount of energy, not only into our the atmosphere or through our magnetopoles, but into the ground also. We see the pressure on our fault zones. So you can go in and you start typing Cascadia subduction zone, and you'll see report after report of increased tectonic pressure in certain places, especially around the volcanoes, which indicates magma movement. And when you have, and it's hard to see in this picture, but in the orange and the yellow, that area is being pushed under Oregon and Washington. And when that grinds, that's creating that friction that it takes. That magma releases through the volcanic areas. That's why those mountains are there. And so the question has been, and I've been asked this for a few years, what would be the effects? Now, I think it's, is it Highway 5 that runs north and south, and most of the reports say anything west of there between 5 and the ocean will be inundated. And everything refers to a 9.2 quake. Now, whether that will happen or not, I don't know, and I don't know how they would know that. They're just looking at the pressure and the pressure released. But I know that regardless, anything in a quake of that area would send a tsunami. I don't know about, as we've seen in the movies, you look at LA or some of the other cities and you see the buildings falling from the quakes and all that. That could happen, but I want to show you what I think, because I've been asked for year after year, and I'm going to show you another map, and I'm going to show you what I think would happen first if we had a tsunami of that size. Now, this is the USGS earthquake map from today, and you can tell there's been energy being released all along the San Andreas Fault. You have a 4.2 here. Now, guys, it doesn't sound that strong unless you've ever been in one. And it goes into your 5.6s you've got here off New Caledonia. And, guys, just yesterday off White Island off New Zealand, that volcano blew, and some people lost their lives. It was like a tourist attraction for this volcanic island. But, guys, they were under a level 2 alert. The tourists should have never been allowed there. But it's telling us that this is waking up. And you can see here, you've got off Greece, 35 kilometers northeast of this area, 5.4 quake. Nothing large, but if you look at the concentration here, you're coming out of the Baja up through the San Andreas Fault area. Here's the San Francisco Bay area. And it comes out into the Cascadia area. And you've got a cracked area of this plate right here that broke off because of its being pushed under the North American plate. Here is the first danger that I see. I'm going to back down to California. Guys, what you're looking at, again, the San Andreas Fault coming down into the San Francisco Bay area. See this? Now, what is behind it? It's it's what I call the Great California Depression. Look at this. Look at the area. Almost the entire state is a great separation point. I think it could have possibly been certain area of a volcano, but it looks like where the plates are separating here, part of the San Andreas fault zone, and going back millennia, this fault zone could have went right through the center of this valley. That's not the problem. The problem is that it is almost completely the state of California involved in the sinkhole. Now, listen to what I'm telling you. If you get a 9.2 and you start getting these huge tsunami waves, they're going to pour into the California through the San Francisco Bay. This is going to go up the rivers, and it's going to inundate almost the entire area of California, guys. Think about this. Again, you've seen the movies where you see the buildings falling in L.A. and all this stuff. L.A. is actually right outside of this basin. So, but from this point, right there, there's your inlet. There's where it all comes out, and that's where it's all going to go back in. Remember the Fukushima earthquake where we had 120-foot tsunami peaking in these valleys, and it was pushing the rivers backwards and huge ships up into through there? This valley's going to fill. That's going to be the first thing that happens. You're going to have the quake, and you're going to have damage along I-5, things like that. But the greatest concentration of population of the entire Cascadia, Cascadia, San Andreas fault area is going to be a flood into this valley. Let me back it out. Just take a look at this, guys, and understand what I'm saying. It's obvious. Look at the entire West Coast, all the way down into the Baja. But there's this one Great Depression. And I want to change this map to a street level map, or a street map. Now, if you look at the state of California, almost the entire thing is involved, from Redding through Chico, Sacramento, Modesto, Fresno, Bakersfield. And again, your Los Angeles area, or Long Beach, Los Angeles area, it will not get it from this area, although you do have some lower points where the interstate comes through Lancaster, Palmdale, and up through this area, through Bakersfield. But depending on the waveform, L.A. will be inundated from the ocean. And again, that's where you see there in L.A. a lot of the movies. But guys, the greatest threat is the entire state in the lower elevations, in which encompasses this entire state. Redding, again, it's going to pour in through this area if we have this 9.2 quake. Now, unlike a lot of people, I'm not going to predict a time, but I do notice that there's more and more activity coming from the USGS, from the Pacific Northwest Earthquake Center, and from the news agencies that have been watching this. They're watching this area north of here, again, the Cascadia fault zone. But again, my reaction, or my answer to the greatest damage, will be the flooding of this valley that we call California. Guys, I want to keep it short. Again, I'm not a date setter on things like this. I do notice the increased activity, but you can see it's very clear that one of the greatest indentions on the entire continent, Canada and U.S., is this great hole, this valley, that has been a blessing to many. But when it comes, and when this 9.2 or 8.5, whatever it comes in as, It's going to push up through here, and this valley is going to become Lake California. And you say, well, will it drain? I want you to look up Quake Lake. I think that was in Yellowstone. Recent times, a giant geothermal explosion. It was an explosion not with lava, but with heated water that had hurricane force winds, and it caused avalanches and quakes and trees down, and a lot of people got killed. But an avalanche shut down the rivers, and there's now Quake Lake. So you got a big quake, you got a tsunami, you got avalanches. This thing fills in, guys. I don't know when it would come, when, if ever, it would drain. Do you understand what I'm saying? You got sinkholes, you got drilling platforms, you got gas pipelines everywhere. You know the problems. But again, one of the greatest sinkholes on the planet. And when you're dealing with that kind of quake, and you've asked me for all these years, what I see as the greatest danger is think about the millions of people that are in this area. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.